weddings are sort of interesting. I mean, there's a lot of rules around weddings about
good.
Who you invite and who you don't invite, and it gets quite difficult, doesn't it? It's when you're like, oh well, we've only got 50 chairs, so
it's not the chairs come to it, John. There's a price tag on each of those chairs. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
There is. But I remember somebody in my lab at Berkeley was making some really cool software to visualize networks. I don't know if you remember, but I took everybody on the guest list and I thought it'd be interesting to know, well, actually at a wedding, it just looks like loads of people sat around loads of tables, but it'd be interesting to see at what parts of your life these people came from. And we did like this sort of cluster diagram and printed it out and put it on the wall, which is thinking back, is a very unusual thing to do at a wedding. But it was quite interesting. I had some school friends, university friends, family friends, and family. And sometimes the family had connections with some of the friends and some didn't. But I do remember having 2 people who came when you drew out this network, everybody was like all these clusters, and then there were these 2 people off at the side, and I had to tuck them in.
Just find a way.
Are they the guys? Are they the guys on the sketch? The guy over on the right hand side going, "Hello."
Who invited him?
So that story brings up 2 interesting points. One is, I think you have your 5 and your 15 and your 50, and there's you have them when you're in your 10s and in your teenagers and in your 20s and in your 30s. So by the time you get to kind of your mid 40s, you kind of have these different groups over time, and they kind of resurface interestingly. And then the second one is that when you get married, you're then with a partner who also has her group, and there's only so much time in a year that you can see people. So you kind of have this scenario where those 2 groups have to kind of come together, and then you almost then rebuild from that.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom.
And Rob, you're probably going through this at the moment, where you're like, well, I used to see Felds the whole time, or I think you're seeing him even more at the moment, aren't you? Because your partners get on really well. Whereas and her, you're seeing her friends, and it's kind of that melting pot together. But unfortunately, some do kind of fall away gradually over time.
Yeah, but it's inevitable, isn't it? Because that's I think where people sit within these groups is almost entirely determined by how frequently you get to see them. Yeah. Right. As you say, there's only a certain amount of time, and when to the point, I guess at our point in life, where there's an opportunity to have somebody new into these different groups, it's a conscious decision that we probably make, or maybe kind of semi-conscious decision, as to whether there's room in our bandwidth to do that.
Yeah, and I personally find I don't have that much room. I quite like having a small group. I got in trouble last night actually with Sarah on this sort of note. There's a festival that happens quite close to where we live, St Albans, and it's all day in the evening. I was like, I really don't fancy going, Sarah. She's like, well, some friends of ours are going, we'll see these. But I was like, well, yeah, I'd rather choose who I see rather than go to something where I might happen upon a load of people that I probably don't really want to see. And she was like, for a social person, you are really antisocial. And I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of how I like it.
All music on this podcast series is sourced from the very talented Frank Cinelli. And you can find loads more tracks at frankcinelli.com.